Very good. All right, team. Welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Project podcast. Today we got an exciting guest, Aaron. How you doing, Aaron?
Good, thank you.
Mate, I'm really excited for this podcast, and I know we've spoken on and off about it over the last couple of months, but to now be sitting virtually face to face together to have the opportunity to hear more about your story and the adversity that you've overcome and a lot of the crazy stuff you've done. Right, like you've traveled to over 65 countries.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there were over 65 countries.
There's a few hundred.
I think I did, but that's a lot. That's a lot of travel, and obviously, you were 8 years in the Air Force as an aircraft technician. That would have been, what was that like? Actually, before I continue introducing you, what was the Air Force like?
Yeah, it was a really good experience. I'm glad I did that. For me, it was more of a ticket out of my hometown than anything. A lot of people ask me why you did that or why you chose that, and there's a lot of reasons behind it. But I think the main reason was it was a ticket to travel, to earn some money, get a trade. We all sort of had that mindset when we were younger, and mainly to get out of my town. I love my hometown. I love everyone there, but I needed to get out of there.
That's cool, mate. That's a good enough reason. I think, can definitely relate. A lot of people, where I grew up, were trying to get out, and the easiest way for us was sport. Not the easiest way, but the way most of us tried to get out of our hometown was through sport. But yeah, so the town where you grew up, you didn't mention, but your Lawn North, is that pronounce it?
That's right, man. So it's a really small town. I like to have the little mini competition with people when they tell me they're from a small town, and they say they had X amount of people, and I'm pretty sure the current population in Lawn North is still around 1,500, maybe 1,600 people.
I was about to throw Toowoomba in the mix, but I think Toowoomba's like 140,000. So
yeah, no, I remember I moved to Wagga for trade training, and everyone's like, "Oh, this place is so small and so shit," and it was like 60,000 people or more or something. And I was like, wow, this place is amazing. Mind blown. Yeah. More than one pub. What's going on?
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And so obviously aside from being in the Air Force and doing a heap of travel and, obviously where you grew up, you now have two businesses, and these are two really cool businesses. And I think that, the more I get to learn about you and hear of these things that, I didn't know for a while, that you had all these crazy little not even side hustles, but businesses. So you have the New Farm Van. So the New Farm Van is a business where we live in New Farm, Tenerife area in Brisbane.
Yep.
Essentially, but it's a van you've decked out where people can, I'll pass it over to you, people can rent it. And
yeah, so I actually started, so there's an app online called Car Next Door. So it's a community car sharing app. So it's for, like, let's say you want to borrow a car, but you don't have one, or you can't afford to buy a car. You can just rent one for a couple of days, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I found this, and I originally put my own car. I had a Mazda, like a car that I just used to get around, sort of the daily drive. I put that on, and it started getting hired quite a bit.
Yep.
And I made a little bit of money that first month, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So then I looked into the website, and actually had a lot of good information about what vehicles earned the most amount of money. So straight away, my head was in, okay, how do I earn the most with the least amount of effort, perhaps? And vans were the ones that you could charge the most for and that were hired most frequently. So I looked around the local area, and there was just no vans. There were the bigger companies like GoGet, but there was no vans. So I just went out, I sort of risked it, and I bought a van straight up. I just invested, got the van, and I chucked it on, and it was booked out straight for the first month. So it sort of proved that what I was thinking was right, and I sort of found a little bit of a gap. And then from there, I wanted to push it. So I spoke to a friend of mine who was a graphic designer. She came up with like a really cool design of the jacaranda tree in the New Farm Park, really recognizable, the name, the New Farm Van. And I built the website, and I've got the Instagram going now, and it's, I drive it around everywhere, and I see it getting driven around, and it's really cool. Like, I want it to be, like, recognized and known. And, yeah, it's just a really cool, thing. I think it's really cool to know that you can just create something yourself. Sometimes we don't realize that every business or everything you see is kind of sometimes we think, oh, that's for those people, they're making businesses, they're doing things. But when you just attack the steps one at a time, and then you finally get there, you realize, oh, I can make a website, I can start a business, I can register my ABN or whatever it is, you know.
It's crazy,
So,
hey.
yeah.
And then your other business as well, Quality Lifestyle Express, which is, it's an Amazon business, right? Or eBay?
Yeah, so it's essentially drop shipping. So it's an eBay store,
Yeah.
and I source products from different suppliers, and then we collate them all, and we provide express and fast postage on the eBay site, and we get the items from different places. So people come and shop on eBay, and then we send them the items from different places.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's backtrack a little bit. Let's see, you know, where that's a sort of a quick little overview of where you're at currently and what life's looking like. But obviously, like all of us, we all have a story. Fill us in a little bit more about the man behind two side hustles, like all the travel and the Air Force experience. Like, how did you even get to that point? Like, what was life like for you from the earlier ages?
Okay, so yeah, when I hear you say story, that's an interesting thing, even because for me, when you say what's your story, I have two sort of things in my head. I think there's your story of your life, like what's actually happened and how you got to where you are, and there's also the other story that sometimes we hold on to, which is like the reason for where we are and why everything's happened. And I think there's two ways to look at it sometimes, and one's more negative and one's sort of more objective, with the sort of an objective look. But so yeah, from the start, I guess I grew up in that small town in Yallourn North. We grew up doing a lot of camping and fishing, and used to do a little bit of hunting. It's just I mean, what I expected, or what I thought, I didn't know much else, I guess, what a small town was. Everybody knew everyone. It was very safe. We all rode push bikes around each other's house. You know, it was right before phones even came out, I think, to the start of high school, maybe, the 3315s and the 3310s.
I remember that, Snake on them and all that.
Yeah, Snake, you know, that was all just starting to come out, and I didn't really get one until a bit later on. But it was kind of those really cool times where you rode to your friend's house to see if they're home and wanted to do something, or you called the home phone. You know, everyone had home phones, and you memorized everyone's home phones because it was just the last three digits were different for each person, and the first three were the same. But I grew up in that small town, and yeah, we just went to school. We caught the bus to school, went to a local college in the next biggest town in Maui, went to Lawana College. And yeah, I mean, it's just normal life to me. It was just, everyone was doing the same sort of thing. And then we all sort of got to the end of high school, you know, and everyone started going on about uni and what they're going to do. And I remember feeling a lot of pressure around that time. It was a bit stressful because I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And everyone seemed to have an idea. They wanted to be a teacher or a lawyer, or they were going to be an engineer, or they were going to study this at uni. And I really had no idea. And I just remember turning 18, getting my car license, and sort of just cutting loose a little bit. You know, you sort of party a lot around those times when you start drinking. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And Dad, he was sort of in the labor industry. He did a lot of mining jobs and shutdowns at big plants and stuff. And he sort of, sometimes when I tell the story, I say pimped me out to all his friends in town. So I ended up doing a bit of concreting. I did carpentry. I did carpet laying. I did plastering. I worked at a sawmill. I did a little bit of everything. And it was all very physical and very laborious kind of stuff. But I did enjoy working with my hands, building, pulling stuff apart. Had a motorbike for a while, and, you know, fixing your own tires and stuff.
Yep.
And then a friend of his actually was in the Air Force as a technician, and Dad sort of shuffled me over to him and had a chat with him. And from what he told me, it just sounded perfect. He says, yep, you're going to get paid to train. You're going to be able to travel. You're going to get a trade. And it just sounded perfect. I'm like, oh, where is it? And he goes, oh, all over Australia. You can go anywhere. And I was like, great, that's it. Ticket out. Let's go. So it was the same day, I think I rang up and I went through the process of going down to Melbourne for interviews, and then going through, and then, you know, it's a long time ago, but yeah, next thing I was on a bus heading out to Wagga for training, and out I went. And then 8 years in the Air Force later. It all happened really quick, man. Like, yeah, it was a good time. The first few years were really good, learning a lot, but I hit a point where I sort of stagnated. I felt like I wasn't learning anymore. There wasn't a lot of room for growth. And it was a bit of a groundhog kind of day. Every day, turn up to work, do the same thing. Every day, turn up to work, do the same thing. Working
A lot
constantly
of
the
us
whole
can
year.
relate to that.
Yeah, dude. And then, you have 2 weeks off at the end of the year. You drop a few $1,000s on a holiday, or as much as you can, and then you're back at it. And it was just repeating itself. And I was getting to my wit's end with it a little bit.
Bloody oath. Bloody oath.
Yeah.
And so when, obviously, so you spent 8 years in the Air Force, what made you want to leave, or what sort of took you in that next chapter of your life?
Well, what made me want to leave? Well, it was like I was saying with the growth, there wasn't a lot of places to go. I noticed that a lot of the people around me, I had a lot of really good friends. Majority of my friends are from the Air Force, and I still have all of those. But the people above me, I was sort of looking to them and sort of looking where I could go, the higher ranks, and what they were doing or how they were living, nothing against them, but it wasn't appealing to me, and I couldn't see myself in that situation. And I thought, if I stay here, that's where I might end up, and that's not where I wanted to end up. And I'd pretty much come out of school. Like I said, I had a bit of time doing different trades, and then I worked all the way through for about 6 years solid, just with the little 2-week holiday, the typical Australian thing. And I got to this point where I just wanted to travel. I'd taken one overseas trip when I was about 19 or 20 to Thailand, and I just loved it. But I hadn't really been good with money, so I never had enough money to really travel overseas.
Yep.
After that. But I just had this desire and this feeling I really wanted to travel. I wanted to just chuck on a backpack, and I just wanted to go. So what I did, I applied for a 12-month period leave without pay. So I got 12 months off work, not getting paid, but I was able to come back to the job afterwards. And I just went backpacking, and I literally traveled around the world. I went east over to South America. I traveled all through South America, Central America. I went to Europe for the summer, and then I finished up through Asia, and I flew back to Australia, completing a full loop of the world in 12 months. And I think I did like 30 something countries that year. And it was just incredible. And it was a massive pivotal point for me to see what I could do and what was out there and the different people that I met. I still have so many good friends from that year that I met. And also the amount of traveling and experiences I got for the amount of money that I spent. I think I only spent like 35 grand in that 12-month period, which I'd saved up. And yeah, and it was really cool. So I got back and I thought, I need to go back to work. I need to earn some money. That's okay. It'll be all right. I wasn't sure how I was feeling about going back to work, but as soon as I got back to work, I knew straight away, I'm like, this isn't for me. This isn't where I should be. This isn't what I want to do. And I just knew, and it was a combination of things on that trip and the way my mindset had changed, a ton of books I'd read that really, I just knew, I'm like, this isn't for me. I've got to get out of here somehow,
Well, so obviously, you had that realization, and I think at some point, majority of men listening to this have had that thought, but they don't change. Right? They remain, often we hear, and I see that it's not bad enough to make you change, but it also is that bad that it doesn't allow you to live a fulfilling life. So what led you to go, yep, it's not where I want to be, and I'm fucking out of here?
I mean, I think just seeing the world the way I did, and the freedom I had was a massive thing, It was huge. I remember getting back, sort of touching on what you were just talking about it not being that bad. I remember getting back, and I was going over a lot of things in my head. Excuse me. I was like, why are these people here? Why don't I want to be here? And I had an idea, but I hadn't fully internalized it. So what I started doing, I started asking other people. So I'd ask my friends at work, and I go, do you really like this job? And, they'd go, oh yeah, it's all right. Pretty good. Don't have to do much. Or yeah, I don't mind it. Oh yeah, it's better than working civvy. And I kept pushing a lot of these people, and what I found is that no one really had a good answer.
Mm,
except for like, oh, I've got the mortgage, or, you know, I'm going to get to this period and then I'm going to get out, or I'm going to wait till I get a better job offer. But nobody could really sit there and say, hey, I love this job. It's exactly what I want to be doing. And I can't imagine myself doing anything else. I mean, maybe I didn't bump into that person. They might've been out working and loving it, not in
yep.
the room where I was, but I couldn't find those people. And that sort of affirmed it for me as well, that, okay, look, if the people I'm working with aren't even that sold on what they're doing and I'm questioning it, then, you know, I'm probably on the right track mentally with what I'm thinking.
100%. I think that's a really important thing to think about, especially for the lads listening. Like, it's fairly similar that the quality of our life and what's going on is very similar to the people that we spend the most time with, right? So if we're hanging around people who, like you said, they're not frothing on their job, they're not like really satisfied with it, the chances are we're in a similar boat. If we're hanging around people who, you know, not financially where they want to be, or they're not in great relationships, chances are, you know, we've got some very similar similarities, right?
Yes.
But it's a good way to almost reflect and, you know, ask ourselves some better questions. So if, you know, if I don't like how my life is playing out, what could I do to change that? Or, you know, if you don't even want to go to that question, it might be like, what's the thing I need to ask myself next or look at next in order to validate, like you did, right? You went and started asking the people you worked with whether they liked it,
Yeah.
right? Sort of validate a thought that you'd had.
Yeah, and the other thing there too, the travel gave me was the different locations I went to and how amazing some places were. Sometimes I was on it, like in Central America. I was in like a $10 a night beach hostel, like literally in front of the beach. You know, spending like $10 a day on food, and it was so cheap. I'm like, I could live here for a few months, and this is amazing. And I started thinking about location where I'd been living. Now in the Defense Forces, you're very restricted with your location. So if you get a job at a base on an aircraft or whatever it is, you have to go live in that place. So I started asking, what do you think about this area where we live? And personally, I didn't like it. I did when I first got there, but then I realized it was kind of, you know, it was right out west. It was a bit rough. There wasn't a lot of things to do there. I don't know. I didn't like it. I wanted to live somewhere, you know, like Brisbane. I love Brisbane. I love the vibe and the people here and the feeling and the weather and everything. And I sort of said, what do you feel about like living here? Wouldn't you prefer to live like somewhere like this? And they go, oh yeah, you know, but that's dictated by your job. And I started challenging that. I go, well, is it? Like, I chose where I lived for a year and I traveled. Like, why can't I build a job around where I live instead of moving to a city for a job, you know? I started trying to engineer it in reverse. A lot of people go for the job and then they build everything around it. I started thinking, where do I want to live? How do I want to live? And then how can I support that? That's what I started thinking in my head to try and build it backwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so many. Mate, I've been guilty of it, and so many people are. We allow our routines, rituals, and processes to suit our career rather than the other way around. And often, for a lot of people, we have to sacrifice a lot of things that are important to us in order to fit into what our role or our job, you know, has us do, rather than thinking how. And I love how you think, and I think the same way. You know, if we really want to be the most fulfilled, confident, empowered version of ourselves, what do I need to do to make that happen? Not fucking what job do I need to find, or, you know, what do I need to be told to do? It's up to me to create that, because I'm the only one who knows what is completely fulfilling and works for me.
Yeah. And the environment, I think, is such an underrated aspect of our overall health, our mental health in particular as well. Our environment is so crucial to how we feel every day. So if you go live somewhere that you hate and it's shit and it's cold or whatever, and there's nothing around that you enjoy doing, you're not going to be happy. You might be earning the most money you've ever had in your life, but I can guarantee you're probably not going to be feeling that great compared to if you're living somewhere that you really enjoy living.
100%. Yeah, it's what do you spend the most time doing?
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously going through that and working out to really design your own life, right, rather than just sort of fit into a different mold like most of us do. Have there been any challenges that you've been faced with that you've needed to overcome, and, you know, what sort of made you remain disciplined, focused, and consistent moving forward? to creating that, I guess, that life by design is how I'd call it.
Yeah, look, I won't lie. Like there was a period where I did slip back into the Groundhog Day in the work cycle. So when I actually got back from that 1 year trip, I filled out my paperwork. I was ready to go. I was out of there within a couple of months. And then the opportunity came up to go on a deployment. So the deployments are where we go overseas and we work for a few months and we can earn and save decent money. And at that time, I just spent a whole heap of money on the 1 year trip. So I was kind of broke at the time and this opportunity came up. So I sort of had to dig in and actually just put in another 5 months of work, but I maintained the goal and the knowledge that after that I was out and I was going to move on and do what I wanted to do. And I did that. I got through it. I remember there were some periods where I sort of fell into this trap of complaining and talking like everyone else and sort of getting lost in the work life again. But I actually had some journaling at the time and I had notes on my desk to remind myself of what I wanted and where I was going and that this was temporary, etc. Because I remember having the thought like, oh, this is good. Like I can earn good money. I can do this next year. This isn't that bad. I started talking like everyone else again, but I caught myself and I went through with getting out. And after that, I think the big challenge was fear and sort of the uncertainty around what I was going to do. I remember thinking, well, shit, I don't have anywhere to live. I don't have an income. Like this money could run out. And a lot of these fears were coming from people asking me questions as well. What if you run out of money? What if you can't do this? What if you can't get another job? And for a little while, I internalized those fears as well from what they were saying. But the overall driver that I had from that year of travel, it was strong enough to keep me going in a direction. And I just knew that doing what I wanted to do and living where I wanted to live, how I wanted to, was the right thing. It just felt right to me.
Yep.
The pain and the thought of going back to that life I had was enough to push me away from it and into where I am now, where I wanted to go. But there's so much, it was really scary to completely quit a job that just for like 8 years has been a solid source of income where, you know, you're on a good salary, you know, you're highly trained, there's a lot of benefits. And just to, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you're throwing it away. You know, all the higher ups had to, you know, have the conversation with me as part of the procedure to sort of say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And a lot of them didn't understand. And I don't know if I was fully certain at the time either, but I just knew that it was the right direction. If I didn't have all the answers, it was okay. But I knew that's where I needed to go.
That's so brilliant. I think just to recap on that, and I know there's a lot of men who work in the mines. So, you know, I guess the lifestyle of the mines, especially the fly in, fly out, they have that time away, and, you know, often it can be very lucrative, but it is easy to fall into that trap from a lot of the men that I've worked with and spoken to around it. And, you know, you get used to that income level and the safety and the quality of life that it is hard to leave, even though, you know, you might be sacrificing spending time with mates, sacrificing family, just sacrificing routine even, right? In order for doing that. So going back, you know, I think it was an important part to understand that we all have the ability to, you know, create a life that makes us fulfilled, right? We don't necessarily know what that may look like at the beginning, but if you're not happy with where you're currently at, that's when you need to start making some changes, right? The people around you potentially mightn't agree with it, or they might try to make you really reconsider it and tell you about all the fearful things that could happen, the scary thing, the risk, all of that. But if we think about it, right, we're only here for 100 years or whatever. And if you're not fulfilled and if life's not going how you thought it would be, isn't it better to take the risk? Because at least you know, right? If you my belief is like, I'm so focused on just being certain in my own ability, right? I know I'm going to face challenges and obstacles every day, as you do and as everyone does. But rather than focusing on what they may be, because a lot of them never happen anyway, I'm just like, well, fuck, whenever one of them arrives, I'm ready for it. I know I'll be able to be resourceful. I'll be able to outthink it. I'll be able to overcome it. But I don't want to waste any mental energy on it until there. So for all the lads who are listening to this, like, Aaron, you did something amazing, right? You had an incredible career. You realized that it wasn't the most fulfilling thing for you. Well, you didn't hate it, but
Yeah.
you also, it wasn't, you know, giving you a lot of the fulfillment that you experienced when you traveled and all that sort of stuff. So you started questioning it, right? And, you know, whether you're listening and you're not quite in the zone where you are thinking about changing, or you might be in the stage where you're starting to really question what else is out there for you, you're probably going to go through some of the same things Aaron went through, regardless of what it is, like what career you're leaving, where people will tell you you're making a mistake, you need to stay safe. You know, if you have kids and family, I know there's a bit more things to take into consideration. I get that, but there's no reason why you can't start putting some things into play to get your life back to how you want it. Because at the end of the day, the reason why most of us are working, or the reason why you guys are listening to this fucking podcast, is you want to be happier, more confident, better empowered versions of yourself. So that if you don't feel that, or if you aren't experiencing that, you're going to have to do something different. Because if you don't change, you're going to feel exactly how you feel right now for as long as it takes until you do change.
It'll get heavier, man. It gets worse and gets stronger. That feeling, you know.
For you, like as well, with the risk and everything that went through your mind, was there times where you doubted your ability to
Yeah, like
life?
definitely a lot. I remember, I think it was, you know, during that year or so after I completely got out, that I believe I was experiencing a lot of anxiety and stuff around my life and where I was going and what I was going to do. And a lot of the times when I wasn't feeling great, all those negative all those negative questions that people were asking me, they started creeping into my mind and digging at me again, you know? And yeah, there were some days that were just great. And I'm like, I've done the right thing. This is awesome. And then there were other days where I was just like, shit, what have I done? You know, like I need to go back or whatever it is. But something that I remember telling a few people that sort of said to me, oh, you know, what if you run out of money, or this is such a good, you know, I sort of thought, you know, you can always get another job. You know, there's always work for workers. You can always find something. But, you know, this is cliche as anything, but you can't get the time back. And, you know, and it is cliche, but it's so true that you can, you know, you will find a way to get money. There's so many support systems out, but you will not get the time back. And I think it's so important that if, you know, a lot of people spoke to me, excuse me, and, you know, after my trip, and they'd say, that's so cool. I wish I could do that. I want to do that. I'm so jealous. And I said, well, go do it then. Like, if you really wanted to do it, you would. Oh, but I can't because of this. And I always tried to think, you know, what is really an excuse there, and how much of that is just you being scared to actually give it a go. You know, they'd say, oh, I've got the car. I'm like, sell the car. Oh, but I'm renting. Oh, get someone to take over your lease. I've got too much stuff. Sell it. Like, put it in storage. Like, put it at your parents' house. Like, there's always a way around that stuff. But people just have these excuses that make them feel safe. And I've been guilty of that as well. I think everyone's always done that to make ourselves feel safe and secure. But if you really want to do something, you'll find a way to do it.
100%. I think one of the craziest things is fear holds so many of us back. Fuck, myself included in some aspects of my life. We've all got it, right? So if there's fear holding you back, and you, rather than just taking that leap, if you're not quite there, ask yourself, what do I need to do to get a little bit more comfortable stepping towards that fear, whatever that is, right? So as you mentioned, Aaron, some people say, oh, I'd love to do that. I got my car. Sell your car. Fuck that. That's scary. Okay, well, maybe ask yourself, what do you need to do or get in order to feel more comfortable selling your car, so that then you can go, like, what's the next step for you? And it is about perspective. So many of us are limited by the fact that, you know, poor questions and poor perspective, right? Why I can't, or I can't do this because of this. I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And so we just validate why we can't do things, rather than flipping the perspective and going, this is why I can actually sell my car. Or if you don't feel you can, well, how can I sell my car? Or how can I make that possible for myself? We've got our blinkers on, tunnel vision, and we don't allow ourselves to see outside of, you know, our own current belief systems, which have us feeling how we currently feel. And like I keep going back to, gents, if you're in a position where your life isn't that great, or the people around you aren't that great, or your own thoughts about yourself aren't that great, got to start fucking changing things. Like, it sounds simple to do, and I understand that everyone's going through their own things, but eventually you're going to have to start questioning and challenging your own beliefs and thought systems. Going back, can I call you Az?
Yeah, call me Az.
Really feel like calling you Az, man.
I've got so many nicknames, man. Like I've got Az, Aaron, Lawsy. You know, like it's fun. I have different ones for different people.
I like it. I just feel like Az is where it's at.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah. Welcome, second guest, Az. But obviously, you said before you created some anxiety around your life, and a lot of that, the environment, people questioning your ability to move forward and all that sort of stuff. What allowed you to overcome it? Was it perspective, or obviously you had some challenges like we all do with it, but how did you sort of get through that period where there was anxiety creeping into your life?
So I remember pretty specifically what the big one was. So at the time, I think it was before I went on that trip, and I started reading like Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, right? In the PD community, it's pretty popular. But I was listening to his podcast, and I was watching his video. I was diving so deep into him, and I remember he had I think it was a TED talk or something, but it was called fear setting. Have you seen that one?
Nah, haven't.
So he's got this technique called fear setting, and I found it really useful. So let's say like one of the questions that people asking me, which created fear, was, what are you going to do when you run out of money? What happens if you run out of money? So your fear might be like, that's the worst thing ever. I'm going to like die or something,
Yep.
But what you can do with fear setting is you kind of go in reverse and you say, okay, what is the worst possible case scenario? What is the likelihood of that outcome? So I did that and I said, okay, I'm overseas and I completely run out of money somehow. I put myself mentally in that situation. Is what you do with this fear setting. So I said, okay, well, I'd need to get home. I could call my mom or dad. I could call a friend. I could borrow a little bit of money to catch a flight home. Okay, now I'm still broke. What am I going to do? Well, I can live with a friend for a while. I could go back home and live with my parents. What am I going to do for money? Well, I mean, initially, if I'm flat broke, I'm going to start looking for a job. And if I can't get one initially, I can go on Centrelink or something, And as soon as I started doing it, I was like, oh, wow, like I'll be totally fine. Like there's nothing to be worried about here. Like, what am I so scared of? Like, yeah, it'd suck if you went back to zero, but you can always work and earn more money and build back up. And I remember I did that with a few different scenarios. I did the fear setting, and I just remember like, and it completely removed the worry. So the worry that you had around it, or I had around it, say it's like a 7 or an 8 for like running out of money, and what would happen to me, the likelihood was like a 2 of like that actually happening and the severity of it. So I used some different techniques like that to sort of just challenge the whole idea of what I was actually scared of.
Okay. It's so important. Like what I took away from that ultimately was problem solving, right? You found your ability to problem solve.
Yeah.
A lot of us, fear is so scary because we don't believe we have the ability to overcome the obstacle. We feel who we are right now is the best of our ability, and that's it. If I, for whatever reason, come into something that I don't know how to do, I'm never going to be able to do it. I just don't have that ability. Rather than going, like I was saying earlier, like what do I need to learn? Can I lean on people for support to get through those periods of time? Has someone else done this before me? Like there's so many questions that we can ask. And I think this, really goes back to the power of questioning things around how we can problem solve. We lose our ability to, and I know when I was employed, so I just expected my boss to tell me what to do and to solve everything that was going on. I never thought for myself.
Yeah.
And because I'd become complacent in that area of my life, a lot of other areas in my life were very, were feeling the ripple effect of that. I was becoming fucking lazy. So one of the most important things that I think from what you were just touching on is start problem solving, right? Whether it's in, if our phone goes flat, we all fucking solve that problem. We go, oh, I need a charger.
Yeah.
I can't find a charger. Well, where could I find a charger? Where's the PowerPoint? We make it happen.
Yeah.
Do that with other aspects of your life when something's stuck.
Yeah. So often, we give up too soon sometimes, I think, because it gets a little bit challenging.
Let's talk resilience, actually, even on that. Like resilience, sort of people do give up too soon. and you're a resilient motherfucker. Seeing, what's that, 8 years in the military, and you've got out, like, you've just been persistent, and obviously running 2 side hustles. I guarantee there's a heap of challenges that you've had to overcome there. And there's probably days where you question whether it's worth it or whether you have the ability to do it.
Constantly.
But how do you keep going, like, for you? Because I know, and guys, one thing before Aaron goes into this, whenever there's something that you learn, right? If we talk about resilience, communication, building confidence, building anything, just know that more often than not, a lot of the principles that are touched on here, or processes that are touched on here, you can implement into any aspect of your life. Right? So if we're talking resilience with as businesses, you can put it in your own resilience with fitness, with, if you're struggling, mentally or emotionally at the moment, or if you're struggling in your relationship, just anywhere where you need that little bit of, resilience, you can take a lot from what Aaron's about to share.
Yeah, I think it applies to everything. Like, it's not just for one thing. It's not just for work or fitness. The skill or the mindset of resilience can just be applied to everything. I find a lot of inspiration in reading a lot of books, and I'm almost finished through David Goggins' book at the moment.
How good is it?
That book is just insane, man. I like listening to the audio book, and it's just, if you guys haven't listened to that, you really need to put that on top of your list, because it's insane. And yeah, like, a lot of people think, I can't do that, I can't do this, but sometimes we need to look back on what we've done and realize that you do have the ability to learn and achieve and produce good results. Like, when I first joined the Air Force, I would see all these guys that were engine operators or supervisors and all this kind of thing. And, you have that thought, oh man, like, I'm never going to be that good, or like, how did they learn all that? And the next thing, you're at that end, and you're an engine operator or you're a supervisor, and you've got these young guys coming through, and you're able to teach them. And sometimes we can forget and not look at it and go, oh, hang on, I didn't know how to do any of this, and now it's second nature. I can do all of this now, And with the online business, the store that I had, I remember the first 6 or 8 months, I was making maybe $200 a month profit, and I was working maybe 5 hours a day on the computer. And it kicked up after that. But I didn't know how to use any software or how to list things or how all the back end stuff worked. And I remember watching hours and hours of YouTube videos and going on forums. But now I would be pretty comfortable explaining most of it to someone and probably be able to teach it. And that just comes with time. We just have to remember that it takes time to develop these skills. But if you've learned one thing, you can learn something else. If you got good at something, you can get good at a lot of other stuff too.
Oh, mic drop, bang. But it is, guys. It's. I'm a big believer in doing the fundamentals really well. And I was on the phone to a client just before this podcast, and I was saying the same thing. Like, we go to work to overcomplicate things. That's why we make ourselves anxious. We make ourselves feel all kinds of negative emotions, because we think in order to get what we want, it has to be fucking complicated. It has to be scary. It has to be, the most treacherous experience of your life. I've changed my life completely by doing the really simple things consistently.
Yeah.
And it's almost, when I tell people what my processes are, they're like, it doesn't wow people.
No, they're like, is that it?
You're like, yeah, but good luck trying to be consistent with it, because it's so simple that you'll forget to do it.
Yeah. And I think it's not crazy enough that it's going to produce an outcome.
Correct. And it's the same with, building confidence or building resilience in, like you just shared. What you now know and you believe to be easy was once hard.
Yeah. No
but
idea.
over a long period of time, from repetition, continuing to do it, you've become more confident in it.
Mm.
It's giving you the resilience to, you look at a baby. I was training with a friend the other day, and her baby was running around and kept falling over, and I was just watching it get straight back up and goes again. It doesn't fucking question. It's like, I need to walk, so let's walk.
Yeah.
If you want to do something, like really want something, you'll just go, oh fuck, that was another way that didn't work. Let's take that as some feedback. What's the next way I can try that potentially will work?
Yeah.
It's going through that. So what for yourself, what's probably the biggest challenge to date that you've overcome, and what is one what would be the one thing that really stood out for you to overcome that? Because I think there's a lot of people, and once again, guys, like I said before, when we talk about overcoming things, you can put this in your own context, whatever that looks like to, and take something away from this and maybe implement it to something that you're going through. It's all processes. I'm a big fucking believer. It's all processes a lot of the time. Obviously there's emotions that are involved in certain things, which, we can help you identify and understand, but no one can tell you what you're feeling or experiencing. That's your own journey, right? We can chat about it, but obviously going through the things you go through, that's your own experience. But using other people's processes, routines, rituals, systems can potentially help you move through things that you want to move through. That was a fucking long-winded question, or
no, it's good, man.
Followed up by a big statement.
You want to do you want to go into the mental health side of things for me? Is that where we're driving?
Mate, if you want to go there, we can go there. And just quickly as well, since we're going there, one thing, guys, this is not here to, the disclaimer on mental health, treat, cure, prevent, or diagnose any mental health or mental illnesses. So if you do feel you're struggling with something like that, make sure you reach out to a clinician. I was going to say physiotherapy, psychiatrist or a psychologist, or reach out to Lifeline and all that. I'll attach those numbers. But yeah, we'll go there. So Az and I started doing some work together a couple of months ago, and this was, I don't even know where we're going to go. We'll see where it goes. But let's do it.
All right. So yeah, let's get into it. So for me, this is something completely new. Everyone listening this podcast, and this what I'm going to get into now is going to be a first for me, talking to more than one or two close friends about it. And so let's see how it goes. So we spoke about anxiety a few times when I was traveling, and I got out of my previous job and things. And a lot of this stuff is kind of hard to remember, but I'll do my best to try and keep a consistent timeline for everyone. But I started feeling what I felt was anxiety. I didn't label it as anxiety at the time, but I started having these somewhat of a breakdown, right? So I remember I think I was in Brazil when I had one, and I woke up one day and I just remember trembling, shaking. You have that feeling like something's wrong. And I just wasn't feeling good. And, it passed after a few days, but over time, whatever it was, these feelings that I was having, it grew stronger, and they became more frequent. So, I mean, I couldn't name or label dates, but it was when I was back in Brisbane here, but I started feeling really shit. I started feeling what I call now depressed. I had a low mood, and I had a lot of anxiety. I had anxiety around people. I had anxiety in a relationship I was in. I had such severe anxiety at one point where I remember being out in public with a girlfriend, and I had what could be seen as an anxiety attack. And we had to run back to the car, and I actually vomited. I was getting that anxious. I don't even know what about at the time, but I was actually vomiting and having a huge physical response to how I was feeling emotionally. Now, at that time, I didn't understand really what was going on. And it was a really shit place to be. Anyway, so before I started seeing you, Lockie, a couple of months ago, started seeing you. So probably in the 6 months before that, maybe 3 to 6 months before that, is where my depression and my mood got to the peak of its severity, and I was having frequent breakdowns. And when I say a breakdown, for anyone that doesn't know or hasn't had one, the one I remember quite clearly was I was on the bathroom floor at a friend's house that I was staying with at the time, and I remember I was sort of screaming. You've seen that movie? Sorry, sidetracking, but the movie where or any movie where an alien or something tears out the inside of something's chest, like it explodes out from the inside or something.
Is that Alien?
Yeah, let's go with Alien.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to lighten this up a bit. So I was on the bathroom floor and I had this, I just felt this pain. It's so weird to describe it. I just had this intense pain. And I remember I was like screaming and yelling and I was curled up in a ball and I just felt like I wanted to rip myself open or apart or something, and I was calling Beyond Blue. I was calling all these suicide prevention lines because at this point, this had been going on so long and I was in so much pain mentally and emotionally that I was idolizing the thought of suicide. And the only way to get out of all this pain for me, I was thinking for a long time, was suicide. And I know that if any of my friends are listening to this, majority of them don't know any of this. And I've only told a few close people, but I feel after talking to you, Lockie, and listening to your other podcasts, that if this is of any value to someone, that's good. And that's the main reason why I'm happy to share this. But so I went through this period and it just kept happening. I don't know. I was in pain and I was feeling shit, and constantly the only thought I had was the only way to stop this, or the only way to feel better, is just to hit the fuck it button and just bounce out, And yeah, man, it was a really shit time, and it went on for months and months until I finally spoke to a friend, and I recommend so highly, and I understand how hard it is when you're in this place personally to reach out and talk to someone, because I know personally I was unable to do it when I'm feeling that way. So you have to do it when you're feeling okay. But I reached out to a friend and spoke to him, and he actually told me that he'd been going through something similar. He'd been feeling depressed and low for a long time, and he went, he saw his GP and he recommended that I went and got help. And me being me at the time, being very stubborn, I thought, no, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to do it myself. I'm fine. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm just going to get it all sorted. And for 2 weeks, I felt great. I was like, okay, everything's good. Don't know what that was. All those breakdowns are gone. That's fine. And then next thing, it just came again. And I was scared for myself. I was scared for my family and my friends. And I decided to go to the GP. And he put me on some medication straight away. I know a lot of people have got different opinions on medication, and I do myself. I was initially very against medication for this kind of thing, but I got on some medication, and the severity of my breakdowns and the frequency, it became less. Okay, and I tried different medications. I started getting counseling, and my mood improved. I got into a better place. So I feel like that was a tool for me and that I'm still using. I'm still on antidepressants at the moment. It was a tool for me that I was able to use to sort of level myself out, and then give myself the ability to sort of have a look at things and how everything was, And I think when I was a little bit clearer mentally, I was able to sort of look back on a lot of things in life and realize that, the way we were talking about things before, it was a lot of the positives, but a lot of things in my life weren't going well, and I wasn't living the way I was meant to. And those things were having a negative effect on me emotionally that I was not addressing. And those things, I feel, built up over time. I'm talking about relationships, health, environment, family, friends, everything. It all built up over time, and that's, I think, what caused the low mood and the depression and the feelings that I was having to happen. And so anyway, fast forward a little bit, and I'm still on one of my first sets of medication. Anyway, I thought I'd got things going, but I realized that I've sort of hit another low patch, and I'm feeling really, really down. And I'm spending a lot of time at home. I'm not talking to my friends. I'm I'm stuck inside a lot. I'm not exercising. I'm eating like shit. If I am eating, I'm not sleeping well, you know? And if you look up any sort of symptoms around depression, low mood, anxiety, these are all in line with it. Like, if you're doing any of these things, you need to sort of take a bit of stock on how you're living, because these things will spiral negatively and they'll build on each other. Your mood will affect what you eat. What you eat will affect how you feel, and what you do will affect how you think. And it's this really bad cycle that you can get into, and you'll just get lower and lower. And coming to you now, Lockie. So this is the point I was at, where I saw your social media posts and I started following you. And I remember, like, I felt like I was kind of out of options. And, you know, at the time I didn't think the medication was working, and I was just really exhausted and I was really over it. And I was watching you and I was following you, and I saw you as this, like, I don't know, I saw you as like this like Adonis of a dude, man. Like, you were out there slaying, you were exercising every day, you were reading books, you were helping people, you were talking about mental health, you were just in my mind, and still now, you were just crushing it. And I thought, wow, this dude's killing it. You know, I need to be like this guy. I need to get around someone like him. And then you had I think it was just a story. It wasn't a post. It was a story, man. And you were just walking down the street. It was really casual. And you were looking up at your phone and you said, hey guys, if anyone's looking to, you know, improve your life, or if you're stuck where you are, or you want to get better. And I can't remember specifically what you said, but something just resonated with me. And I was like, this is what I need to do. Like, I need to reach out to this guy and get help. And because I'd previously gotten help with the doctors and the psychology and the counseling and stuff, I was at a point where I was, okay, I'm brave enough and I can go and get that help. Because that's a big step when you're feeling like that, for a lot of people too. It's really, really hard to reach out. So I remember I sent you a message on Instagram. So I wrote this big message. I'm like, dude, I'm really struggling. I'm in a bad place, man. I feel like I've tried everything. I don't know what's going on, but I really need some help, you know? And it took me about 20 minutes I typed it and I sat there and then I sent it. And I sat there for the next 5 minutes staring at it. And I think it was late at night, man. I wasn't sleeping and I was up late at night. And I deleted the message because I was like, nah, can't do it. Something stopped me, man. I was so scared. I'm like, nah. Anyway, I think it was a few days passed and I got out and got some sun. I think I talked to some friends. I was feeling a bit better. And I think I just kept watching your posts and I was like, yeah, dude, I gotta send this guy a message. And I did. And then you got straight back to me, man. And it all happened really fast, but I remember getting on the phone with you, then meeting you in person. I sort of told you a bit of my story and you just you listened and you understood. And I could just tell that you understood, even if you didn't know exactly what was going on. You just listened and you understood, and it made me feel so comfortable. And you were just like, yeah, I can work with you, man. We can do something. Like, let's get into it. And I remember walking away from that feeling so positive and so good, because I was like, right. And straight away, I'm like, I've taken the right step. I've made the right decision here. You know, for so long, I've decided not to get help and I'll do it all on my own. A lot of people have this mindset, you know, I'll do this on my own. I'm strong. I can handle anything. But after that, I was like, getting help is what I need to do. You know, reaching out and getting help is the answer to improving my quality of life. And I know, sorry, everyone, that was a really long story, but basically, yeah, I was depressed. I've been diagnosed with depression. I'm on antidepressants. I have been for quite some time. Most of my friends don't know. And yeah, working with you, Lockie, was a massive catalyst in improving my life and my mindset, and just everything that I have now. I feel, yes, I've created by myself, but I feel you have helped me create so many of the positive things in my life. So I want to thank you, man, for being there for not just me, but everyone that you are. And yeah, that's kind of it, man.
I appreciate you sharing that story, and it's cool to even hear it all the way back through. And there's some things I'd love to sort of touch on. I think, you know, one of the most powerful, or a few of the most powerful things is like, one, reaching out and also understanding that when you're in that pit or whatever it feels like for you, it's hard,
Yeah.
right, to reach out. So exactly doing what you said, but it's also, it's the accumulation of getting the right tools and resources in your corner. Like, I don't think that I'm a big believer there's no one size fits all approach. Like, I'm not the one size fits all for anyone. There's, everything plays its part and plays its role, and different things do different things for different people. That was a bit of a which is why I think it's really important to, not as people, and especially when we're struggling, we hope that when we do build up the energy or the courage to ask for help or try something different, we hope, I hope this just fixes me completely.
Yeah, we want a magic pill. We want
Yeah.
to bullet.
Rather than going, this is just a step in the right direction. It's going to help me understand a little bit, but I also need to gather some things, and like you touched on before, medication is a brilliant tool because it enabled you to get to the point where you could start thinking differently, right? And thinking in a way and reflecting. But then you embodied that with, seeing a counselor, seeing a psychologist, and they're all in your corner.
Yeah, totally.
And you started exercising. You mentioned getting sun.
Yeah.
And you came and saw me as well. Like, there's all these people in your corner who are helping you just understand yourself a little bit more. So ultimately it's all back on you for doing that, right? And I think it's phenomenal. Going back to the very start, because you said obviously a lot of your friends don't know the extent of what your challenges have been, and or not even challenges, just your life, right? This is life. We all face challenges. What it's been like for you? If there was a way, or if because there's going to be a lot of people who listen to this, and whether they're experiencing it themselves or they may want to know as a friend, like, how, from your experience, do you feel you could have been better supported potentially, or people could have reached out to you or checked in or stuff like that?
Yeah, look, I don't think it's like what I want to say is that if anyone is listening or anyone that I know, it's not like you selectively tell people for a certain reason. And when you do tell someone, it's a really interesting thing that happens. So what can happen is you'll just be with a friend. It might not even be your closest friend. It might just be, sometimes it can be someone you've just met.
Yep.
And you might just have a conversation, and you might just be in a certain mood, and they might just mention something that makes you feel a certain way. And then it's happened to me with strangers. This is the weirdest thing. I've mentioned more sometimes about my mental health to strangers than I have to friends that I've had for 10 years. And this is really strange to me, but sometimes you'll just be talking to someone and you'll feel something, or you'll catch a vibe, or they'll say something and you'll go, hey, yeah, look, I'm actually on antidepressants and I've been feeling pretty shit for a long time. And then you'll sort of go, fuck, I just met this person. Like, why am I telling them this, And I think a lot of people can relate with telling random people random things, like when you're out in a pub or something and you might be drinking, you might just tell someone a random thing that you've just met. It's not so much that. And I think the big thing for me that I remember is I didn't want to burden anyone with my problems. I did not want to have my friends, like, all my friends are amazing and they're always there for me. And I know that a lot of them might even have an idea about this, and they will sometimes be like, hey man, if you need some help or if you want to talk about anything, yeah, no worries, man. Thanks. That's great. But the biggest thing for me was not wanting to burden anyone. I was always under the impression that this is my problem and I'm going to fix it, but what I found later, that the more people I talked to or the more people I told, the more I found out that it was normal to feel this way. It was normal to be feeling so shit all the time. And a lot of people are. There's a lot of people on medication. I think 1 in 3 people are on some form of antidepressants these days. I mean, it's not the best thing for everyone to be on antidepressants, but the point there is that it's quite common, and I found that when I did start to speak to the right people, not only professionals, but friends that were going through similar things, it did help me. And to understand that they were feeling the same way, and they would, try this, or I've done this, or, call me. And when you know that that person understands on a deeper level, you're more comfortable talking to them. And it's not that my other friends aren't like that, I'm not comfortable talking to them. It's a combination of not wanting to burden them and also thinking maybe they just wouldn't quite understand, or they wouldn't quite get it, and I might be wasting my energy, But I think for being there, or for friends that might think someone's going through this, don't, for me, this is a personal opinion, don't push, don't ask, don't do those kind of things. For me, the best thing you can do is just be there. Like, even if you just come over or just call, you don't need to talk, just be in the vicinity, be at arm's length, because sometimes I found that people that were like, oh, hey man, if you need to chat, you ever need to chat, let me know. Sometimes that was sort of like,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with me, man. I don't need help. Like, but if someone was just like, come over and they would just sit there quietly on their phone, I would sometimes feel more comfortable talking to them because they were just there, So
100%.
I think that's a big thing, is just proximity. Yeah.
100%. I think that's definitely good to know and hear from that perspective, because I definitely know there's a lot of people out there wondering, how they can best support people. And obviously, like you touched on, that's your perspective and your experience. And
Yeah.
I believe it is different for all of us, like the whole experience of what, these negative emotions could be, even positive emotions, right? Happiness is different for all of us. I think it's important for us to take ownership of that, right? Because it's our experience. That enables us to sort of feel those ways. So thanks for sharing all that. Like that's
Yeah, man.
a powerful thing. And you touched on some great things. Obviously, how people can best support you, how you felt going through that, but also the tools and resources that you implemented in your way. And I'm a big believer that if you're if you can relate to Aaron's story and you're experiencing similar things like depression, anxiety, or anything like that, definitely seek professional help.
Go
Right?
to your GP. Yeah, it's definitely the first step. I remember with my friend, he was just like, I was trying to find a solution, and he just said, just go to the GP. And I really think that's the best thing you can do. I know in Queensland, you can make an appointment and you can get put on a mental health plan straight away. I'm pretty sure it's all covered by the government and everything. And it's a really good ball to get rolling. You can get some counseling, and I know it's super scary and intimidating, and you need to find the right people to connect with. But yeah, it's definitely the first step, is go to your GP and let them know what's going on.
Yeah. And before we ask one last question, just be mindful. I know for a lot of blokes, there's a stigma around it. And, if you break your bloody arm, you go into the GP to get it plastered up and fixed, and then you get all your buddies to sign it, right? It's the same with mental health. Doesn't, struggling with depression, anxiety, or anything, any mental illness doesn't make you any less a person. It doesn't define who you are. It's something that you're experiencing and going through.
Yep.
And, you acknowledge that, people support you, and then, you not deal with it. You put things in place to get yourself to a position where you can, overcome it and get back to what you would perceive as your normal self.
Yeah.
And
people need to look at it as any other problem, like, a broken piece of furniture or a body part, your mental health. It's just a problem that you need to sort of solve. And the stigma's dead, man. Like, I think it's all the work you're doing is really good, but I know some people still have that idea and it's not spoken about enough. But I think people need to just be more comfortable with it and be more open.
100%. So last question. I haven't prepped you for this one because I never prep anyone for it.
I think I know what it is.
Oh,
I haven't prepared, but
yeah.
I can guess.
What's your definition of being a man?
There it is. See, I listen to your podcast, man. That's why.
Yeah. You can always tell when people don't listen or they hide it well. They go, "Oh, stump me."
Dude, I asked you if there's anything I needed to prep. You're like, nah, it's all off the cuff, man.
It is.
I won't lie. I've thought about it a little bit, but okay. So definition of being a man. Okay. Man, I'll try to keep it short. I think to be a man there's a few things you need to. I sort of still believe in the old, what might be considered the old paradigm, which is you need to be a strong figure, like a strong physical and emotional figure, a provider. You need to be protective, and you need to be a rock for someone, or for your family, or for your friends, and for your girlfriend or partner. You need to be that solid thing that they can rely on and lean on and look to. But you also need to have the guts to be vulnerable and to be what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. You've got to be able to have the softer side and the understanding and the masculinity to be vulnerable and open up to people as well, because that sometimes is as impressive, as like being strong and lifting weights, as being vulnerable and being open, honest, and raw with people. That's just as impressive and just as much of a strength to being a man, I think.
Love it, mate. Love it. I think it's really important, and the reason why I love hearing what everyone's definition is, because there's someone out there somewhere who can relate to that. And I think it's important to understand that there is no one size fits all approach. We're all entitled to have our own definition of what that is. And I think that's what makes us all incredible, is our uniqueness to owning that, right?
Yeah, it's dynamic too, man. Like, it can change. You can have new ideas. You can change your perspective at any time. It's not a set thing.
And where can people find you if they want to, find out about the New Farm van and all of those sorts of things? What are your hashtags, links?
Yeah, right. If you're in New Farm or Brisbane and you need a hire van, you can find us on Instagram. It's just the New Farm van, and the website is thenewfarmvan.com.au. If you want to do some online shopping, head to Quality Lifestyle Express on eBay. And if you want to see about 8 or 10 old travel pics of mine, my Instagram, my inactive Instagram is aaron.s.laws. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not super active on there, but I do get on there and use it as a bit of a news feed for myself and post some stories occasionally.
Yeah, it's good fun, mate.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on, mate, and thanks for sharing the highs and the lows. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who can relate and get a lot of value from you sharing your story. So appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, no worries at all, man. I feel pretty good about it now. I won't lie, I was super nervous and talking about all this stuff, but I feel okay now. You've put me at ease once again. And anyone listening, if you do want to, you should definitely reach out to Lockie, your professionals as well. But if you think chatting to me might help, just send me a message. I'm happy to talk to anyone online or in the local area as well.
Legend.